One of the typical challenges with software-defined networking is identifying use cases. And sometimes we tend to think very big when we think about use cases and we want to solve world hunger problem. But in reality, there are a lot of use cases that are right there in our face, staring at us and desperately asking for, for some solution, for some help. Now, one of these use cases is the problem of addressing the complexity of managing firewall infrastructure. A classical example is an enterprise customer coming to us and complaining that their firewalls have experienced an explosion in the number of rules that they don't know how to manage anymore. Now, you would ask them, well, we know by now, but if you were to have one of these conversations, ask them, why do you have that kind of rule explosion? And the typical answer is usually that rules are built in a firewall on a per application basis. And so what you have to do is every time an application gets deployed, that firewall needs to be updated and new rules need to be entered in that firewall to implement the policies that the application requires. And as these rules get built over time, obviously they're built on top of each other, you get to a point where if an application has to be retired or is decommissioned, number one, very often the network team is not even informed that the application is being decommissioned, so that those rules may just stay there forever. Or even when you have better processes and the network team knows about the application being decommissioned, it becomes very difficult at that point to know exactly which rules on that firewall will need to be eliminated or changed in some way. And so the safe bet at that point becomes to just leave things as is. And the challenge with that, as you can imagine, is that after a certain period of time, be that 1 year or several years, depending on the lifetime of the box, you have an accumulation of rules that gets, and I've heard any kind of number from a few thousands to a couple of millions. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a few thousand or a couple of millions, but there is clearly a very high level of inefficiency in this type of approach. Now, this is a very classic use case that we help customers. This is a very classic pain point that we help customers address and solve. The way we solve with this pain point is by letting customers deploy dedicated virtual instances of firewalls on a per application basis. And when you do that, you know that that firewall is only going to exist for the lifetime of that application. So will be created with the application, will live with the application, and can be very, very easily deleted when the application is decommissioned or retired.